Now, I was recently having a conversation with ChatGPT, if you can call it a conversation, and I was asking it how it actually thinks, how its process occurs to create the output. And it clearly stated to me that it does not think, it does not consider things as a human would. In fact, it told me that it has no goals as far as what its output should be. Now, that's diametrically opposed to how humans generally think. Humans generally have a goal in mind and try to figure out how to get to that goal. Whereas AI has a starting point and it just figures out what the most likely next step is without considering where it's going to end up in that process. So each of these individual tokens that the AI has analyzed and determined a probability for exist within the AI's mind, which it calls a vector field. You can think of this field kind of like outer space, and each token might be a different star in outer space, and the AI is trying to get from one star to the next on its journey. But an AI's vector space is extremely high dimensional. We think of outer space as 3 or 4 dimensions, but when I asked ChatGPT what its vector field exists as, how many dimensions it has, the AI told me that its vector field, its version of outer space where these tokens exist, consists of uh, 16,384 dimensions. So each token within the AI's space, within the AI's vector field, is defined by coordinates which contain 16,384 different coordinate points. When we prompt AI, when we provide an input to AI and say, we want to analyze this data or give me background information on this scientific process, what AI does is it takes our prompt, it determines the probability of all of the tokens within that prompt, and it creates a vector coordinate within this 16,000 dimension realm that it has in its mind. And so our prompt becomes a starting point somewhere in that vector field, a starting point with a direction to it. So our vector, then the AI takes that vector, it aligns it with all of the tokens that it has in its mind, and it determines which vector it knows of in its mind is next closest or most closely related to our starting point, the vector that we started with. That token that it finds next on its path is the next token that it outputs. So if the word cell is in the prompt, then the next token might be cell membrane. It might come up with membrane as the next token, depending on what all is in that prompt. If your prompt includes biological terms, then that defines part of the high dimensional vector that's associated with your prompt. And maybe the next closest term to cell would be membrane. But if the rest of your prompt is not related to biology, maybe it's related to crime or the justice system, in the English language, cell might mean a prison. So in that case, your whole prompt has created a different vector space, and that high dimensional vector field, the next closest point or token in that vector field would be related to incarceration or a prison, for instance. And so back to the case at hand, the model that's produced, the AI model, is just this field of coordinates for these individual tokens. The model simply learns from the data that's input into it. So if your model doesn't have any information about biology, it won't connect the word cell and membrane. So it would only have the other option of connecting cell to prison.